Are not happy about some of Governor Cuomo's education reforms. A measles outbreak in the U.S. is bringing the debate about vaccines into the national spotlight. And we sat down with economic expert Daniel McDowell to talk about the Greece debt crisis. Come join the conversation. Talking Point starts right now. Evening and welcome to Talking Points. I'm your host, Max Darrow. Before we start the conversation, let's take a look at some of the top news stories of the week. President Obama has officially asked Congress to formally authorize the use of military force against ISIS. Obama said the request helps achieve, quote, our core objective to destroy ISIL, end quote. If authorized, the U.S. will be allowed to start a well-planned campaign of airstrikes. He does not want to put American troops on the ground because he doesn't think it's a necessary step to defeat ISIS. And the conflict in Ukraine may be one step closer to a resolution. Leaders from Ukraine, Germany, Russia, and France have agreed to sign up for a peace plan. A ceasefire will come into effect this weekend, and all parties involved will have up to 14 days to remove all heavy weapons. Leaders involved say there is a lot more that must be done, but this is a good start. And finally, 3 Muslim students were shot and killed in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The shootings didn't only cause an uproar within the college town, but an anti-Muslim bias has been a common topic on Twitter, and people on many forms of social media are outraged. Many are calling it a hate crime. Now, these are just some of this week's talking points. There's a whole lot more coming up after the break. We'll be right back. All right, prompter.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
If you want to be a parent, it doesn't matter how you play, what you wear, how you dance, or even what direction life takes you. You just need to be there. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care don't need perfection. They just need you.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed ours.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Parents across New York State are unhappy with Governor Cuomo's education reforms. People gathered to talk about these issues at a Syracuse school last week. Talking Points correspondent Mike Riccardi was at the meeting.
On Wednesday night, it was standing room only at Lynn Court School in Syracuse. Students, parents, educators, and elected officials were in attendance for the hashtag #AllKidsNeed Forum. Fed up with the gap elimination adjustment and education reforms bundled with state aid, certain administrators and students aired their grievances and spoke their minds. Following opening remarks, students and teachers spoke during a public comment period. Many called for the opting out of standardized testing and called for an end to the current teacher evaluation system. The politicians listening, including Assemblyman Al Sturpey, State Senator Dave Valesky, and Syracuse Common Councilor at Large Helen Hudson, also addressed the crowd. They urged those in attendance to continue to make noise and hold these discussions.
Mike spoke to some of these people at the meeting about their issues with the education budget and as it stands now.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for...
Well, there are a lot of challenges facing public education, and the biggest problem is actually our governor. He's derailed the process and said that he wants what he calls reforms all in a package. and he's holding the legislature, our schools, our teachers, our parents, and our kids hostage. If he doesn't get everything he wants, our schools will be left hanging with very little money to do anything at all.
Everything in New York points to the fact that the schools are not failing. The governor is trying to paint public education in a negative light because he wants charter schools for his rich friends. Public education in New York is doing well and will continue to do well if we are left alone.
I've been through a lot of these fights, through these types of meetings and everything, and I've never really experienced anything like this. Like I said when I was up there, last week at North Syracuse, there were over 600 people in the auditorium there, and people are really engaged this time, and when that happens, that's when people in political office listen.
Well, certainly a forum like this reminds us as legislators how important this issue is. There's a lot of components of this budget proposal that has brought out a lot of concern among people here in Syracuse and Central New York and really across the state, but it is just the first step.
Mike, thanks for coming on the show tonight. So we're just going to get right into it. What exactly is the gap elimination adjustment?
The gap elimination adjustment was enacted during the 2009-2010 school year, and basically using a formula, which varies by district, they are able to basically take back the funds from state aid in order to close the deficit gap in the state budget. And over the 5 years or so that this has been going on, they've basically taken back $9 billion. And currently, as it stands right now, there's bills in both the Assembly and the Senate to end the gap elimination adjustment.
Okay, so what problems are schools facing because of the gap elimination adjustment?
So a lot of people in public education feel like the gap elimination adjustment has caused them to make cuts in personnel, which include teachers, administrators, and support staff, and also to make cuts in programs such as sports, club, music, and art. And additionally on top of that, with the gap elimination adjustment comes a property tax cap. And basically, again, this is used or made with a formula, and it's a set number that the districts can only tax up to. And if they want to tax above this tax cap, they have to receive a supermajority of 60%. So basically, districts have to walk the line of deciding whether or not that they have the votes to raise the taxes or they're going to have to cut programs.
Seems like a very hard dilemma, and I can understand where they're coming from. So why are educators and administrators weary of the governor's proposal to increase state aid by $1.1 billion?
Yeah, so $1.1 billion sounds great, but basically a lot of people are saying that, this is not enough to make up for what the gap elimination adjustment is doing to us. And with the governor's proposal comes a lot of stipulations, basically saying we're going to hold back the money unless you agree to our reforms. And to show that they're serious, the governor's staff right now has not released the state aid runs for school districts. And without these charts, which tell districts how much money they're going to be receiving, they basically have to guess whether or not they're going to get less or more the same state aid that they did last year. And in a budget process, when you don't know how much money you're going to get, it's difficult to make cuts or keep things. And state or school district budgets have to be finalized by mid-April, so the time's really ticking on this issue.
Okay, so why are teachers now opposed to this current form of evaluations and standardized testing? I know we're shifting gears, but...
So the new reform to teacher evaluations basically has 50% of the rating purely based off of standardized testing scores. And with that, the new rating system, it makes it a lot easier for teachers to get fired, and it makes them a lot more difficult for teachers to get tenure. And people have a really big uproar with the new standardized testing because they don't feel like it's a fair system. They don't think that kids with learning disabilities or kids that are on different learning levels as their peers should be having to take the same test. And with these new testing, they're being tested on material that they were supposedly to learn, a couple years behind where they are now. But the problem is that they didn't learn that because it was currently or was not part of the curriculum. So they're being tested on information that they don't know. And another thing, people are saying that, for these elementary age school children, a couple hour long standardized test is really stressful. And, if there was one statement that was echoed the other night at the forum was that children are not characterized by their test score.
I can understand the standardized testing. It's hard for me to sit for a couple hours and take a test. Mike Riccardi, thanks so much for being here with us tonight. After the break, we'll take a look at the vaccine debate in America. Don't go away.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Preventing wildfires. That's all Smokey wants for his 70th birthday.
Oh! Checking your fantasy league? Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I've just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Welcome back to Talking Points. A measles outbreak is sweeping the nation and bringing with it a serious debate about the importance of vaccinations. I'm here with Talking Points science correspondent Sawyer Rosenstein. Sawyer, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So getting the discussion started, there's a huge debate about vaccinations going on. Do you mind just telling us both sides?
Sure. Well, the main thing that people think about when you hear about the vaccine debate is these high-name celebrities like Jenny McCarthy and other people who claim that vaccines cause autism. And there are reports out there, one or two, that say that, there is a possible link between the two. However, for every one or two reports that say that there is a connection, there's about 14 or 15 that say that there is no proven connection. And in fact, after they discontinued using some of these materials that might have caused autism in these vaccinations, the autism numbers went up, not down.
Okay, so we're talking vaccinations, we're talking scary parts and possibilities of them. A lot of people, when they think of vaccinations, they think of formaldehyde and mercury and aluminum. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, all of these are inside these vaccines. There's, aluminum compounds, formaldehyde, which you think, why are they putting formaldehyde into your body? Well, you're already putting formaldehyde into your body if you think about it. There's more formaldehyde in an apple than you're getting in these vaccinations, yeah. And when you think about aluminum, because the main concern here is children, there's more aluminum in breast milk than there is in the vaccinations that your children are getting. So it sounds like these are horrible things, but they're normal things that your body have in them anyway. And all the stuff that was considered to be, harmful, like there was one chemical that actually contained a little bit of mercury in it. People are saying, oh, well, mercury, that's horrible. Yeah, but it hasn't been used since 2001.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, we're talking measles now. The measles outbreak that started in Disneyland. Where's the debate with that now?
Well, the debate with that is obviously about the concern of people who don't vaccinate. Well, then you run the risk of giving it to other people, especially little kids and people who can't get vaccinated, who may be undergoing chemotherapy or have some other form of problem with their immune system. And obviously that is a concern, but there's actually something called herd immunity, which basically means that if a majority of the people have the vaccination and are therefore resistant to this disease, then the people who can't get the vaccine are actually at less of a risk of getting it because there's less of it going around. And in fact, actually, this was a big problem back in 2012 with whooping cough. If you remember, there was a big outbreak that happened then.
Very well.
And that was because there was a number to be met. 94 to 96% of the population should have gotten the vaccine. Since it was less than that, I mean, you had tens of thousands of people getting whooping cough, the largest outbreak since the 1950s.
Sawyer Rosenstein, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Great numbers, as always.
Thank you.
When we come back, a look at the economic problems both within Kansas and Greece. Stay with us.
And Tommy can't dance, so we're gonna put some ants in their pants. Aww.
Kids will spend 22 minutes watching us, the super duper party troopers, sing about ants in their pants.
Isn't that funny? Ants in their pants, they got ants in their pants, they've got ants in their pants.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
This new mom is struggling to get the skates just right. Now she's holding on for dear life.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of siblings in foster care will take you just as you are.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Cheers.
Take time to be a dad today.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
And welcome back to Talking Points. Now, after implementing sweeping tax cuts for individuals, big businesses, Kansas is experiencing a very imbalanced state budget. To discuss the governor's plans to move forward, Talking Points correspondent Tom Austen is here in studio. Tom, good evening.
Thanks for having me.
So starting us off, how do things in Kansas today reflect what was done in the past, and how much can be attributed to Governor Sam Brownback's initiatives?
Well, I think they have a lot to do with what Brownback did upon entering office. He basically, in 2010, won in a landslide, 30%, and came in championing the idea of making Kansas a national model for conservative governance. And that would assume, of course, tax cuts. So he came in, signed a package into law where 100,000 plus big businesses would receive tax credits. Individuals in all sorts of brackets would receive the same. And in doing so, he saw it as being a shot of adrenaline into the economy. But it didn't work out that way. Businesses were not growing as fast as he would have liked. The employment rate was not at a level that he would have liked either. And the revenue did not come back into the economy as he intended. So you find a big gap in the budget now.
Okay, now how does Governor Brownback propose to change things, and how may these changes affect the local community?
Well, Brownback has two plans. One, he's going to reevaluate the spending that was done by the government. He's going to look into certain pension fund spending. He's going to look into funding of highways, and he's going to divert a lot of that to plug the $279 million gap that's in the budget right now. He's also going to look at making, sales tax come into play more. He's going to slow down these individual income taxes that he had planned, and to do so, he's going to try and plug the gap.
Okay. What's the response? Have other governments tried to adjust their own policies to prevent a similar crisis? How are other politicians and governmental leaders reacting to this?
Well, I think they're reacting, and with the results, because the business was not growing as fast as Brownback had intended, I think they realized that it's necessary to implement these cuts at a more evolutionary pace than a revolutionary one. And with that in mind, the Ohio governor basically came out and said he has to reevaluate his tax policy. The Missouri state senator kind of said the same. And because it's just the stakes are too high to leave a gap like that. When states are not allowed to have a year-to-year budget imbalance. They have to keep it balanced so they can continue to fund schools, continue to fund highways, infrastructure, stuff like that.
Tom Austen, thanks so much for being with us tonight. Now, Kansas isn't the only place struggling with debt. Talking Points correspondent Hernz Laguerre Jr. sat down with the Syracuse political science professor to talk about what's been going on in Greece. Hernz?
We are here with Professor McDowell, political science professor here at Syracuse University. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
He'll be speaking on the new financial situations that are going on in Greece. So I guess I'll go on with my first question.
Great.
Could you speak a little bit about the new political party that recently has taken over in Greece and the policies that they have made?
Yeah. So I think the best way to start answering this question is actually to go back a few years. And this all dates back to 2010 when Greece was first unable to pay back its external creditors, mainly German and French banks that had loaned the government money. And because of that situation, Greece had to look to other European countries, as well as the International Monetary Fund, for assistance. And so a number of these creditor countries in Europe, Germany, France, Finland, other countries like that, and the IMF, loaned Greece money, but in return expected Greece to implement what are generally referred to as austerity measures, raising taxes, cutting spending, selling off government assets, things like that, to help get Greece's financial house back in order. And after 5 years of austerity, essentially what's occurred is the Greek economy has, for most of that period, been in recession. Unemployment has doubled through that period to now where about 1 in 4 Greeks is unemployed. The number of people living on the edge of poverty has increased. And so when there was an election just a few weeks ago, the party that won, Syriza, appealed to this rising discontent in Greece. And this is a left-wing party that took over. And essentially, their main policy platform that they ran on was that we're going to renegotiate a better deal for Greece. We are no longer going to continue implementing these very harsh austerity measures. Instead, we want debt relief, and we want to be able to focus more on spending and stimulating the Greek economy as opposed to accepting austerity as the normal or as normalcy for the next few years. And so that's the basic platform that they ran on, and they ended up winning and did quite well. And so at this point, the next step is for them to try to actually get that better deal with the other European countries, the rest of the European Union, and the IMF. And the question, of course, now is, will they be able to get a better deal or not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would you say the situation is bigger than Greece?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the Greece obviously has a huge stake in this. Greece ultimately wants to stay in the euro, the common currency. There would be some significant economic consequences for Greece if they pulled out. That is an option, but I think that the likelihood is that they're not going to do that because of those costs. But for the rest of Europe, this is a really important issue because if Greece were to leave the Eurozone, this would raise questions about other countries. The basic idea behind the euro is that you can't leave, right? Once you're in, you're in. And so this would raise concerns about countries like Portugal and Spain that also have financial problems, and I think would raise difficulty for them on financial markets, especially how they're able to borrow money, the price that markets are going to charge them. And if Greece stays in, right, the concerns are political. If Germany or France and the IMF decide they want to give Greece a better deal, this is going to anger a lot of voters in those countries that feel like they have, through their taxpayer dollars or euros in this case, lent Greece money and want Greece to follow through in good faith with that initial agreement.
Okay. Now, you spoke a little bit about ways that Greece could get out of this situation.
Yeah.
Can you speak more detailed about that?
So, I mean, obviously, one possibility is to leave the euro, but I really think that's an unlikely scenario. Okay. In Greece's ideal scenario is to see a significant reduction in the austerity measures they have to implement and to have a portion of their debt forgiven. The rest of Europe, or the creditor countries in Europe, would prefer not to give Greece anything. They would prefer Greece to stick to the original deal. So right now, I think the most likely scenario is some kind of compromise. The rest of Europe does not want to see Greece default, which is the main leverage that Greece has. We were just not going to pay anybody back. Okay. And Greece doesn't want to be forced out of the euro. So I think the most likely scenario here is that you're going to see the European Union give some concessions to Greece, but not all the concessions that they want. We can think about this as a deal between, a buyer of a car and a car salesman. You're probably not going to get the best price you want, but you're also probably, going to do a little better if you do some negotiation. And that's essentially what Syriza is trying to do. They're trying to just get a slightly better deal for Greece than they have right now.
Okay. Now, I guess a last question. What is the likelihood of this situation happening again?
Well, That's a really good question. To be honest, I think that if you look at the history of what's happened in Europe in the last 5 years, there's probably a very high likelihood that we'll probably have these types of negotiations ongoing.
Okay.
Right now, Greece has its debt to GDP ratio is about 175%, which is huge. In other words, its debts are massive, and even a better deal right now is probably not going to get them out of the economic situation they're in. And Europe has essentially just been taking small steps, kicking the can down the road, if you will, the last 5 years. So I think it's probably pretty likely that we'll have a similar situation like this in a few years. Maybe not as dramatic as what we've seen in the last year, or excuse me, the last few weeks. But yeah, I don't think this is the end of it either.
Okay. Well, thank you, Professor McDowell. It's very informative. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Happy to be here. Thank you. Good
Appreciate
questions,
you.
and I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Here's your check.
Oh, you got it.
You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. No.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Months ago, during an interview, I was asked, if you could have dinner with anybody, who would it be? And a few months ago, I answered Brian Williams. He's extremely articulate, he knows what he's talking about, he's intelligent, seems like a pretty down-to-earth kind of guy. If you were to ask me that same question again today, I'd still answer Brian Williams. He is very articulate, intelligent, he's seen the world, but all I would really want to know is why. Why he embellished his stories and didn't tell the truth. What his motives were. Weren't the stories themselves compelling enough? These are just some of the questions that have gone through my head over the past couple days. I've spent a lot of time analyzing what's happened and trying to predict the outcomes and potential decisions, and here's where I'm at. I don't know if he's ever going to make it back to the desk. NBC may be using this 6-month period to find his replacement. However, 6 months is a very long time. Maybe he'll go incognito and fall out of the spotlight, giving him a second chance. Only time will really tell. I have very mixed feelings. Right now, I don't know if he ever should come back to the desk. Part of me thinks he should just walk away. By going back on air, he may single-handedly diminish the credibility of all journalists. As America's most trusted newsman, he represented journalists from Anchorage to Atlanta. But part of me really would like to see if he can reestablish his credibility and get that second chance. What I do know is this. Brian Williams made some huge mistakes, but everybody can learn from them. I know I have. I've learned some great things from Brian Williams, from his highest highs and his lowest lows. But the most important thing, do the little things right and tell the truth. If you get caught lying, own up to it. Call a spade, and move on. If Brian Williams owns up to his mistakes, takes every shot thrown at him, and is honest with the American people, he'll get a second chance, and his legacy will live on. That's all we have. I'm Max Darrow. Good night.